We see trash all around us. It's gross, it sucks, nobody likes it, and it didn't used to be here. Humans made it up. Hundreds of years ago, everything on this earth was either reused, recycled, repurposed, or turned back into more earth, which is pretty cool. Nature created all these cycles. They worked really well. Plants would grow, they would turn back into soil. Everything was just cycling all the time. But now we've created these linear systems where we take things out of the ground, we make them into indestructible things like plastic, and then we seal them back into vaults in the ground called landfills.
But there is this concept that you might have heard of called circularity. You might have heard of a circular economy or just circularity in general. So tell us a little bit about what circularity actually is.
Circularity is really just trying to mimic nature. Nature is based on cycles. Everything cycles. The earth cycles, carbon cycles, water cycles. Everything gets reused, turned back into something else. Circularity and the circular economy is really just us humans trying to create systems that work in modern day life. So instead of this linear system where things get buried in the ground for the end of time, we repurpose everything, reuse it, recycle it into other things.
That sounds so much better than what we have now. What are some examples of circularity that we can see today?
There's so many. One of the ones that people are probably most familiar with are thrift stores and consignment stores. Not only is this a way cheaper way to get your clothes, but it's preventing things from being made. There's also things like bulk stores, refill stores that you can bring your own containers to, fill them up, not have to get any plastic packaging. Composting is huge. The earth is a compost machine. So again, we're just trying to make sure that still happens. I think a lot of people don't know this, but in landfills, your food doesn't actually break down into soil. Because
Tell me more. I thought it just took longer.
so there's a lot of gross stuff that goes into landfills, like not things that we want going into the soil. So landfills are actually lined so that nothing can leach out of them. And we want that. We want to keep all that grossness in there. But when we put food in there and other organic waste, it's locked away from oxygen and it degrades in a way that it just turns into methane. It doesn't turn into soil.
And methane, if you don't know, is 80 times more potent for warming the atmosphere than carbon over the short term, and still 20 to 40 times more potent than that over the long term. So methane rapidly speeds global heating even more than carbon. So we want to not have methane in general. Hold up. Let's talk about why circularity is so important in the food system, especially. If you don't know what the food system is, we made a video about it doing a deep dive, but it's essentially everything from the way we grow food to how it's transported, packaged, produced, and to how it gets to our plates. Our food system has become increasingly globalized and complicated and linear and wasteful. The food that we eat has a massive impact on the environment. It's one of the easiest ways for us to take climate action through changing or shifting the foods that we eat. Not everyone can afford to put solar panels on their home. Not everyone even owns a home where they can be the decision maker for that. Not everyone can upgrade to an electric vehicle, but everyone has the power to change the way they eat to be more sustainable and to also introduce more circularity. What do I mean by that? Let's talk first about food waste. In the US, we waste more food than any other country on earth. We throw away 120 billion, with a B, pounds of food each year. That's estimated to be 40% of the entire US food supply. If the way that we grow food has such a massive environmental impact, then why are we throwing 40% of it away? But for now, I want to talk about what we do when we can't eat the food anymore. So say you bought some veggies and you completely forgot about them. You went out of town, you come back and they are rotting in your fridge. If you throw that away, just like Rachel said, it's going to decompose in a landfill and produce methane. But foods are nutrient rich, and for most of human history, it was never wasted. We would either eat it or we would feed it to animals, or we would put it back into our garden to turn into soil. When food breaks down in compost, it requires a couple of different things. For one, it requires oxygen, which is why you want to be turning your compost over, because Food only produces methane when it decomposes if there's no oxygen present. You also want to keep it hot because that helps the food break down into smaller particles and eventually be turned into soil. The most common way that food gets composted is through the decomposers in our ecosystem. These would be earthworms and other little insects that essentially eat up the little bits of food and poop it out into something that's nutrient dense and adds to our soil organic matter. But you can also use animals like pigs, and pigs do a lot of work. They eat the food, poop it out, nutrient-rich manure that gets turned into soil, but then they also use their snouts and they like snuff along the compost pile and they do the turning themselves. With that being said, there's a few different ways that you can start composting at home and really embracing circularity. Not everyone, unfortunately, has a Nude Foods by them yet. If you live in the Denver Boulder area, we can help you decrease the packaging waste along with your food waste. And if you live outside of those areas, be sure to follow along because we are expanding and we would love to come to your city. But if you don't have a Nude Foods by you, then one of the single most impactful and easy climate actions that you can take is to compost and to reintroduce circularity into your cycle of food waste. So instead of growing something, packaging it, eating it, throwing it away where it doesn't even decompose, you can throw it into your compost and allow nature to turn it back into soil that you can use in your own garden, or you can donate to a community garden, or you can give to your local farmers. Let me talk to you about how you can actually compost at home. Number one, you can use a compost service. We partner with a couple. We partner with Picky Pig in Boulder and Compost Colorado here in Denver. And this means that you can drop off your food scraps at either of our stores and one of our partners will make sure that it gets composted and turned into soil. If you don't live in this area, look up compost services in your city. So there's tons of composting service. You may have to pay for some, but typically they're pretty affordable. And when you think about how much it's saving us environmentally in terms of avoided methane emissions, you can feel really good about the fact that you're supporting bringing us back into greater harmony with the cycles of the earth. The second option is to get a tumble composter. These are essentially big black kind of barrels, and you put your food scraps in, you give it a little spin, and then after a while it turns into compost that you can then use in your garden. These will last you years. And then the third option is to DIY your own compost. Now there are a few different ways to do this. You can do what's called a 3-bin system. Take like chicken wire and some lumber and build 3 kind of like square cages with open fronts, and you put your food scraps in one, and then when it's time to turn them, you dump them into the next one, and then by the third one, once they've been aerated a lot and you've kind of moved them through this system, you should have a nice quality soil in the third bin, while in the first bin, that's where your fresh food scraps go. So that's one way to do it. You can also do what my mom and my grandma have done for my whole life, which is if you have a little in-ground garden bed, they just reserve half to a quarter of it as their compost section. And then the next year, they use the other half. They just keep switching back and forth. And all you need for this is a shovel. You just dig a hole, you throw your food scraps in there, you bury it. I like to chop them up a little bit, and then as you keep adding and digging and turning, you are aerating your compost. This is by far the easiest, but not everyone has access to a yard or to ground space where you can do that. If you have raised beds, you can do this in your raised beds. I would definitely make sure that you have earthworms in there and you haven't had it for very long. You can order red wigglers is what they're called, the type of earthworms that are great for composting, and you can put them into your raised garden bed. But basically you want to dig out a hole in the middle that's pretty deep and put chicken wire around there, and then as you add food scraps, you're going to layer in a little bit of shredded paper. Make sure that it's compostable. We don't want like something like glossy magazine paper. We want, plain brown paper. And then you add another layer of food scraps and then another layer of browns. And as you do this, the earthworms are coming in from your garden, eating the food, pulling it out back into your garden bed where they're gonna poop it out and make beautiful, rich, nutrient-dense soil. There's many different ways that you can compost, whether it's through a service, by buying a compost tumbler, or by doing it in your own yard. Another reason why circularity is so important in our food system is because when you walk into a normal grocery store, everything comes in plastic packaging. We just did a video on this as well, so head over to our YouTube to get the deep dive or follow us on social media, and we have little clips posted from all of our YouTube videos there. But plastic packaging is a massive issue, especially because when it comes to grocery packaging, pretty much every single thing that you buy is going to be single use. So we're drilling for oil, turning that into plastic, packing your food in it to maintain freshness, even though food can sit in these plastic bags for months on end, and to keep them from rotting, you have to add different things to your food, like preservatives, to make sure that even though it's in plastic, it stays fresh. And then by the time it gets to you, you use these packages for anywhere from 30 seconds to a few days before you toss them out into the trash. They're never turned into soil because plastic is not biodegradable. And so by using plastic packaging, we're just constantly adding microplastics to our environment and plastic pollution to our earth. So to increase circularity in this area of your life, if you don't have Unused Foods where you can buy things in returnable jars, the first would be to shop at a bulk refill store. So you can use containers that you already have. You can refill many food items from a bulk refill store, along with things like your soaps and your conditioners and detergents and all of that sort of stuff. So look up to see if you have a refillery near you, and if you do, make a point to at least start doing some of your shopping there to decrease your plastic waste and to really be reusing all of the things that we already have available to us. The second option would be to shop at a farmer's market or a local place where you can buy fruits and veggies without any plastic. Bring your reusable tote bag, or if you're buying smaller things like Brussels sprouts, bring a reusable Tupperware container and just have the farmer put their food directly into your own container or your own bag. If you are buying produce from the grocery store, skip the plastic produce bags. These are used for a few seconds to, again, a few days while they sit in your fridge, and then they're tossed out. But film plastic is really, really hard to recycle. And so instead of using plastic produce bags, you can get reusable cloth ones, or just do what I do and don't even take a bag at all. I'll just put things straight into my cart because I know I'm gonna wash my fruits and veggies when I get home anyways. If you want more tips on how to avoid plastic in your life, then check out our video on it. But those are just a couple of ways that we can start reusing things and increasing circularity in our food system, from composting to how we buy our groceries. And with that, let's go back to our interview. Those are some great examples, but I see right here that we have some food in a glass jar that I'm assuming is returnable or reusable. So tell me a little bit about how we can be innovative with what circularity looks like in the food system.
So what we've decided to do is make circularity easy for people, because we have this system that's been created by large corporations and it's really hard for any individual person to make choices outside of that system. So basically what we're doing is we're creating a different system based around circularity. We receive all of our products in bulk, in large quantities, and then we package them into these glass jars. Then as a customer, you can just return that jar when we're done, and then we wash it and refill it. So we've taken that packaging, plastic packaging step totally out of the equation.
That sounds amazing. I feel like we need this all over the country. First off, how much packaging is actually saved with this method? And then also, is this scalable? Could we have this in every city across the country?
Hell yeah. Okay, so if you think about when you go to the store and you maybe buy like 1 pound of oats, and that comes in a plastic bag. We get our oats in 50-pound bags, and it's paper. So you're saving all of those extra bags. And for some products, like this popcorn, they're made locally and brought to us in reusable containers. So there's actually no packaging all the way back to the manufacturer, which is amazing. And other products that we make in-house, like these potato chips. So we put them directly into glass jars. There's no other chip that can say that. Because we do all this, it adds a lot of labor. It's very cool, but it's much more labor intensive. So it actually works better with scale. The more we grow, the more packaging we can save. This can be replicated all over the country. We just need to have a lot of stores around one packaging facility. But we can do that basically in every metropolitan zone in the country.
So what I'm hearing is for circularity to really work, we can't necessarily have these huge, massive national systems. We can take things to scale. We just need little pockets where circularity can be done more effectively on a local scale without using a ton of resources or transportation.
Absolutely. I mean, think about like if you're in Pennsylvania and your food is getting packaged in Colorado, you're not going to send your packaging back to Colorado. That makes no sense. So we need to have these localized systems where food is grown, produced, and packaged, and then that packaging is returned.
And we just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. We know that there are many different complexities within the food system. And so, what we're doing over the next few weeks is to really look at different areas that we can talk about and maybe tell you a little bit more and teach you about how we can be more sustainable when it comes to the food that we eat, that we all need to live. So, if you have any questions about circularity or anything else, drop them in the comments. And also, we would love to hear how you're embedding circularity in your daily life right now. So pop those in the comments as well. And we'll see you back here next week for another sustainability conversation.
All right.